15 psychological truths that will change how you see people. Imagine this. You walk into a room filled with strangers. Before you say a single word, before you shake a single hand, before anyone knows your name, several people have already formed an opinion about you. Some believe you're confident. Others assume you're shy. A few decide whether they can trust you. And here's the surprising part. They're probably doing it without even realizing it. Every single day, your brain makes thousands of silent judgments about other people. Most happen automatically. Some protect you. Others mislead you. Tonight, we're going beneath the surface of human behavior to uncover 15 psychological truths that quietly shape your friendships, your career, your relationships, and even the way you see yourself. Some of these truths may challenge what you've always believed. Others may explain experiences you've never been able to put into words. And the final truth may completely change how you interact with people for the rest of your life. Let's begin. There is a fascinating paradox about being human. We spend our entire lives surrounded by people. We talk to them, we work with them, we fall in love with them, we argue with them, we trust them. Yet, despite all those interactions, most of us understand surprisingly little about why people behave the way they do. Why does one person command respect without raising their voice? Why does another constantly seek approval? Why do some friendships disappear without warning? Why do certain people make us feel safe almost instantly, while others leave us uneasy for reasons we can't explain? Psychology doesn't have every answer, but decades of research have helped uncover patterns in how people think, decide, remember, trust, cooperate, and judge. These patterns don't determine what every individual will do in every situation. Human beings are far too complex for that. But they do help us understand tendencies that appear again and again across different cultures and situations. Today's video isn't about manipulating people. It's about becoming a wiser observer. Because when you understand people better, you communicate better. You make better decisions. You avoid unnecessary conflict. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to understand yourself. Let's start with the first psychological truth. Psychological truth number 1. Your brain makes fast judgments, but they're not always right. Picture yourself walking into a coffee shop. You notice two people sitting alone. One is dressed in a tailored suit, sitting upright, calmly reading a book. The other wears casual clothes, has headphones on, and is scrolling through a phone. Without meaning to, your brain starts telling a story. The first person must be disciplined. The second must be distracted. But here's the question. Do you actually know either of them? Of course not. Your brain simply filled in the missing information. Psychologists have long studied how people form first impressions. Research suggests that people often make surprisingly rapid judgments about traits such as confidence, warmth, or competence from limited information. Those first impressions can influence later interactions, even though they are not always accurate. Think about how often this happens. A teacher assumes one student is more capable. An employer forms an impression during the first moments of an interview. Someone decides whether they like a new neighbor after only a brief conversation. Our minds are built to recognize patterns quickly. That ability helped our ancestors make rapid decisions in uncertain environments. But in modern life, it can also lead us to unfair conclusions. How many incredible people have been overlooked because they were quiet? How many opportunities have been missed because someone appeared nervous during a first meeting? The lesson isn't to ignore first impressions completely. It's to remember that they are only the first chapter of a person's story, not the entire book. The wisest people stay curious long enough to discover what lies beneath the surface. Because appearances introduce people, character reveals them. If our brains are capable of making mistakes within seconds, then what happens when we spend years believing something that isn't true? The next psychological truth explains why people often defend their beliefs even when the evidence says otherwise. And once you understand it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Psychological truth number 2. People don't always remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. Imagine attending a birthday party where you meet 20 new people. By the following week, you may struggle to remember most of their names. You might even forget parts of the conversations you had. But there's something your mind is far more likely to remember: how each person made you feel. Perhaps one person listened to you without interrupting. They made you feel valued. Another barely looked up from their phone. You left feeling ignored. A third laughed at your joke, encouraged your ideas, and made the conversation feel effortless. Days later, the details fade. The emotional impression remains. This is one of the most powerful truths about human relationships. People often believe influence comes from saying the perfect words. In reality, connection is built through the emotions created during an interaction. Think about your favorite teacher. Years may have passed since you sat in their classroom. You probably can't remember every lesson they taught, but you remember how they believed in you when others doubted you. You remember the encouragement, the patience, the kindness. Those emotional experiences became part of your memory. The same principle applies everywhere: in friendships, in marriage, in business, even in leadership. People naturally move toward those who consistently make them feel respected, understood, and safe. This doesn't mean you should fake kindness just to be liked. People are surprisingly good at sensing insincerity. Genuine interest cannot be replaced by rehearsed compliments. Instead, ask yourself a simple question after every meaningful conversation. How did this person probably feel after talking with me? Did they feel heard? Did they feel appreciated? Did they feel judged? Did they leave with more hope than when they arrived? Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give another person isn't advice, it's your full attention. Because attention tells people something words alone cannot. It says, "You matter." And in a world filled with distractions, that message is becoming increasingly rare. Real-life story. Several years ago, a young employee joined a large company. She wasn't the smartest person in the office. She wasn't the most experienced. She rarely spoke during meetings. Yet within a few months, almost everyone wanted to work with her. Why? Whenever someone explained an idea, she listened carefully. She remembered people's names. She asked thoughtful follow-up questions. She celebrated other people's successes. Years later, when employees were asked who had influenced them the most, her name appeared again and again, not because she had the highest position, but because of how people felt whenever they were around her. Influence often begins with emotional intelligence, not authority. The next time you enter a conversation, don't ask, "How can I impress this person?" Instead ask, "How can I make this person feel respected?" That single shift changes everything. Because respect is remembered long after impressive words are forgotten. But emotions don't just shape memories. They also shape decisions. In fact, one psychological principle quietly influences almost every choice you make. You believe you're making logical decisions. The truth may surprise you. Psychological truth number 3. Logic doesn't drive most decisions, emotion does. Imagine you're shopping for a new phone. You compare the features, read reviews, watch YouTube videos, tell yourself you're making a completely rational decision. But then, one advertisement catches your attention. It doesn't focus on technical specifications. Instead, it shows a father recording his daughter's first steps, a couple capturing memories while traveling the world, friends laughing together at sunset. Suddenly, the phone feels different. Nothing about the hardware changed. What changed was your emotional connection to it. This illustrates something psychologists and behavioral economists have explored for decades. Emotions often play a powerful role in decision-making, even when we believe we're being purely logical. People often explain their decisions with reasons, but many decisions begin with feelings. Think about buying a house, choosing a career, voting, accepting a job, falling in love, even deciding whom to trust. Logic certainly matters, but emotion frequently determines where our attention goes first. Then our minds search for reasons to support the choice we've already started to prefer. This doesn't mean people are irrational. It means we're human. Our emotions evolved to help us navigate a complex world. The challenge is recognizing when emotions are helping us, and when they might be leading us astray. The wisest people don't ignore emotions. Neither do they blindly follow them. Instead, they pause. They ask difficult questions. They seek evidence. They invite trusted perspectives. Because emotional awareness isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about understanding them. And that understanding often leads to better decisions. Powerful reflection. The next time you're absolutely convinced you're right, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, am I following the evidence or simply defending how I already feel? That one question has saved friendships, marriages, businesses, and even entire careers. Transition. If emotions quietly influence your decisions, there's another invisible force shaping your life every single day. And unlike emotion, you rarely notice it happening. It's called confirmation bias, and once you understand it, you'll begin seeing it everywhere. Psychological truth number 4. Your brain loves being right, even when it's wrong. Imagine two friends watching the same football match. When the final whistle blows, one insists the referee made fair decisions. The other is convinced the referee ruined the game. Oddly enough, they watched the exact same match. So why did they see it differently? Because the human brain doesn't simply collect information. It interprets information, and one of the strongest tendencies psychologists have studied is something called confirmation bias, our tendency to notice and remember information that supports what we already believe while overlooking information that challenges those beliefs. This bias affects all of us. If you believe a coworker is unreliable, you'll quickly notice the times they're late, but you may barely notice the days they arrive early. If you think someone dislikes you, a short text message can feel like proof, even if they were simply busy. Your brain isn't trying to deceive you. It's trying to create a consistent story about the world. The problem is that consistency isn't always the same as truth. History is filled with examples of intelligent people who confidently defended ideas that later proved false. Confidence alone isn't evidence. Being convinced doesn't automatically mean being correct. That's why truly wise people stay curious. They ask questions. They welcome new information. They're willing to change their minds when the evidence changes. That isn't weakness. It's intellectual maturity. A story. A university professor once divided students into two groups. Each group was given articles about a controversial topic. One group received articles supporting one viewpoint. The other group received articles supporting the opposite viewpoint. After reading them, most students became even more convinced that their original opinion was correct. Instead of becoming more balanced, they became more certain. The information didn't change their beliefs, it strengthened them. This illustrates how easily our minds can become trapped inside familiar ways of thinking. Life lesson. The next time you strongly disagree with someone, instead of immediately asking, "How can I prove them wrong?" ask yourself, "What if they know something I don't?" That single question can transform arguments into conversations. Growth begins where certainty ends. But even when we remain silent, we're still communicating. In fact, some of the most powerful messages you'll ever send require no words at all. Psychological truth number 5. Silence speaks louder than most words. Imagine sitting across from someone during an important conversation. You finish speaking. Instead of responding immediately, they pause for several seconds. They simply look at you. No interruption, no rushing, no defensiveness, just silence. Most people become uncomfortable with silence. They feel the need to fill every pause with more words. But psychology suggests silence often serves important social functions. It gives people time to think. It allows emotions to settle. It signals that someone is listening instead of merely waiting for their turn to speak. Some of history's greatest leaders understood this. They didn't rush every answer. They allowed space for reflection, because thoughtful pauses often communicate confidence. Think about the last time someone interrupted you repeatedly. How did it feel? Probably frustrating. Now remember someone who listened carefully before answering. You likely felt respected. Silence creates room for understanding. It allows people to feel heard, and feeling heard is one of the deepest human needs. This doesn't mean staying silent all the time. Healthy communication requires speaking honestly and clearly, but learning when not to speak can be just as powerful as knowing what to say. Sometimes, your silence protects peace. Sometimes, it invites honesty. Sometimes, it reveals far more than another sentence ever could. Story. A young manager inherited a team that constantly argued. Previous leaders tried to solve every disagreement by talking more. The new manager tried something different. During meetings, after someone spoke, he waited. At first, the room felt awkward. Then, something unexpected happened. People began explaining their ideas more clearly. Others started listening instead of interrupting. Within weeks, conflicts became more productive. Nothing magical had happened. The silence simply gave people permission to think. Practical lesson. Before responding to criticism, pause. Take one breath. Ask yourself, do I need to react immediately? Often, the wisest response begins with silence. Transition. But silence isn't the only invisible force shaping relationships. There's another mental habit we all have, one that quietly damages trust without us realizing it. Psychological truth number 6. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but others by their actions. Imagine you're driving to work. Someone suddenly cuts you off. Your immediate thought might be, "What an inconsiderate driver." A few days later, you're the one who accidentally cuts someone off. This time your explanation is different. "I didn't see them. I'm late. It was an honest mistake." Notice what happened. When judging yourself, you focused on your intentions. When judging someone else, you focused on their actions. Psychologists have explored this tendency for many years. It's one reason misunderstandings grow so easily. In relationships, one partner says, "I didn't mean to hurt you." The other responds, but you did. Both statements can be true. Intentions matter, but so do consequences. Healthy relationships require both. When we only defend our intentions, we stop listening. When we only judge another person's actions, we may ignore the circumstances they were facing. Compassion begins when we remember that every person is fighting battles we cannot fully see. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it does encourage understanding before condemnation. The strongest relationships aren't built because people never make mistakes. They're built because people learn to see beyond them. The next time someone disappoints you, pause before labeling their character. Ask yourself, is there another explanation I haven't considered? That single habit can save friendships, strengthen marriages, improve leadership, and change the way you see people forever. But here's something even more fascinating. What if the people who seem the most confident are sometimes the ones hiding the greatest insecurity? That's exactly what we'll uncover next. Psychological truth number 7. Truly confident people don't feel the need to prove they are confident. Imagine two people entering the same room. The first person immediately begins talking about every achievement they've ever accomplished. They mention their expensive car, their successful business, their connections, their accomplishments. They seem determined to impress everyone around them. The second person walks in quietly. They greet people warmly. They listen more than they speak. When they finally share an opinion, everyone pays attention. Here's the question: which person is more likely to possess genuine confidence? Most people assume confidence is loud. Psychology often shows something more nuanced. People with secure self-esteem generally don't need constant external validation. They don't have to win every argument, dominate every conversation, or convince everyone that they're important. Their confidence comes from within, not from applause. This doesn't mean confident people are always quiet. Some are naturally outgoing. Others are naturally reserved. The difference isn't volume, it's motivation. One speaks to be admired. The other speaks to contribute. One fears being overlooked. The other isn't consumed by that fear. True confidence doesn't eliminate insecurity. It simply refuses to let insecurity control every decision. Years ago, a journalist attended a conference filled with successful business leaders. Before the event began, he expected the most influential people to be the loudest. Instead, he noticed something unexpected. Many of the most respected leaders spent most of their time asking questions. They listened carefully. They made others feel comfortable. They weren't trying to dominate the room. They were trying to understand it. That observation changed how he viewed leadership forever. Sometimes, the strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't need everyone to know they're the strongest. Life application. The next time you feel the urge to prove your worth, pause. Ask yourself, am I speaking to help or to impress? That one question reveals far more about confidence than any title ever could. But confidence alone isn't what builds lasting relationships. There's another invisible force that quietly shapes almost every friendship, every marriage, every successful team, and it's called reciprocity. Psychological truth number 8. People naturally want to return kindness. Have you ever noticed something remarkable? You hold the door open for someone. They smile. Later, without even thinking, they hold the elevator for another person. Kindness spreads. Psychologists have long studied a social principle known as reciprocity. In many situations, when someone receives generosity, respect, or help, they feel a natural desire to respond in kind. This principle influences everyday life. A neighbor helps you move. Months later, you gladly help them when they need assistance. A coworker supports your project. You become more willing to support theirs. Healthy relationships often grow through their accomplishments. These small exchanges of goodwill. But reciprocity isn't only about favors. Respect often creates respect. Trust often encourages trust. Honesty often invites honesty. Unfortunately, the opposite can also happen. Bitterness produces bitterness. Criticism produces defensiveness. Contempt often creates distance. Human relationships frequently mirror what we repeatedly invest in them. That doesn't mean everyone will respond positively. Some people won't. But your character should never depend entirely on someone else's behavior. Choose kindness because it reflects who you are, not because you're guaranteed something in return. Story: an elderly shop owner had a simple habit. Every customer who entered his store received the same warm greeting. Some barely acknowledged him. Others smiled. Years passed. When difficult times came, the local community supported his business. People remembered how he had made them feel. Kindness had quietly built trust long before it was needed. Reflection. Ask yourself tonight, what am I consistently planting in the people around me? Because sooner or later, most gardens produce a harvest. Yet despite our desire for connection, one powerful emotion silently influences almost every relationship. It's the fear of rejection. Psychological truth number 9. Almost everyone fears rejection more than they admit. Imagine standing outside a room. Inside, a job interview, a first date, an important conversation, a marriage proposal. Your heart beats faster. Your palms begin to sweat. Why? Because rejection doesn't simply threaten our goals. It threatens our sense of belonging. Human beings evolved in communities where acceptance often meant survival. Being excluded carried serious consequences. Although our world has changed, parts of our brains still respond strongly to social rejection. This explains why many people avoid difficult conversations, stay silent about their dreams, remain in unhealthy relationships, never apply for better opportunities, not because they lack ability, but because they fear hearing one small word, no. Ironically, many successful people have one thing in common. They stopped treating rejection as proof of failure. Instead, they treated it as information. Every no taught them something. Every setback strengthened resilience. The greatest danger isn't rejection. It's allowing the fear of rejection to prevent you from living fully. A young writer submitted his manuscript again, and again, and again. Publisher after publisher rejected it. Eventually, one accepted. That book went on to inspire millions of readers around the world. History is full of stories like this. Success often belongs to people who kept moving after disappointment. Life lesson. The next time fear whispers, "What if they reject me?" Answer with another question. What if they don't? Sometimes, the life you've been praying for exists on the other side of one courageous conversation. But courage alone isn't enough. There's another psychological truth quietly shaping your future every single day. Most people underestimate it, yet it determines far more than talent ever will. It is the incredible power of small daily habits. Psychological truth number 10. Your life is shaped more by small habits than big decisions. Imagine two friends graduating from university on the same day. Both are equally talented. Both have similar opportunities. Neither has extraordinary wealth or powerful connections. Fast forward 10 years. One has built a successful career, enjoys healthy relationships, and appears calm under pressure. The other constantly feels overwhelmed, struggles financially, and wonders why life never seems to improve. What happened? Most people assume the difference came from one major opportunity, a lucky break, a perfect decision. But in many cases, the difference was much smaller and much quieter. Daily habits. Psychologists who study behavior have consistently found that repeated actions shape our lives over time. A single healthy meal won't transform your health. One workout won't make you fit. Reading one chapter won't make you an expert. But repeat those actions consistently, and years later the results become extraordinary. The same principle works in reverse. A little procrastination each day, a few unnecessary expenses, a few minutes wasted on distractions. None of them seem dangerous until they quietly become a lifestyle. Life is rarely changed overnight. It is changed one ordinary day at a time. The people you admire are often not doing extraordinary things every day. They're doing ordinary things, extraordinarily consistently. Story. A young musician dreamed of performing before thousands of people. Instead of waiting for inspiration, he made one promise to himself: practice for 1 hour every day. Some days he felt motivated, some days he didn't, but he kept showing up. Years later, people called him gifted. They admired the performance. Very few noticed the thousands of quiet hours that made it possible. Success often looks like talent from a distance. Up close, it usually looks like discipline. Life lesson. Don't ask yourself, what dramatic change should I make? Instead ask, what small habit can I repeat every day? Small choices become powerful when they are repeated. Transition. But changing habits isn't always easy. Why? Because your brain doesn't naturally love change. In fact, it often resists it. Let's explore why. Psychological truth number 11. Your brain prefers familiarity over improvement. Have you ever stayed in a situation you knew wasn't good for you, simply because it felt familiar? Maybe it was a job, a friendship, a routine, or even a way of thinking. Human beings naturally prefer certainty, even when certainty isn't ideal. The unknown feels risky, the familiar feels safe. That's why change often feels uncomfortable at first. Learning a new skill, moving to a new city, starting a business, speaking in public. All of these challenge your brain's preference for predictability. But here's the irony. Everything you've ever wanted lives outside your comfort zone. Growth always asks for something: patience, effort, courage, humility. The discomfort you're experiencing today may simply be evidence that you're growing. Don't mistake unfamiliarity for danger. Sometimes, it's opportunity wearing a different disguise. Reflection. Ask yourself honestly, am I avoiding this because it's wrong, or because it's new? That question can change the direction of your life. But there's another invisible force shaping your opinions every day, one that's surprisingly powerful. It's called the halo effect. Psychological truth number 12. One good impression can fool your mind. Imagine meeting someone who is incredibly attractive, or exceptionally well-dressed, or highly successful. Without realizing it, you may begin assuming they possess other positive qualities too. Perhaps they're intelligent, kind, trustworthy, honest. But here's the question: how do you actually know? You don't. Psychologists call this the halo effect. It's the tendency to let one positive characteristic influence our judgment of unrelated characteristics. This doesn't mean attractive people aren't kind, or successful people aren't trustworthy. Many are. The problem arises when we assume those qualities without evidence. The halo effect reminds us to evaluate people as whole individuals, not as first impressions or appearances. Real character reveals itself over time, not in a single photograph, not in one conversation, and certainly not through social media. Story. A company once hired two candidates. One interviewed confidently, the other appeared nervous. Months later, the quieter candidate became the team's most dependable leader. The first impression had been incomplete. Character needed time to reveal itself. Life lesson. Give people enough time to show you who they truly are, not just who they appear to be. But perhaps the greatest psychological truth of all has nothing to do with other people. It begins with you. Psychological truth number 13. Gratitude doesn't just change your mood, it changes your perspective. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, before checking your phone, before looking at your emails, before thinking about everything that's going wrong. You stop. For just 60 seconds, you quietly think about 3 things you're genuinely grateful for. Perhaps it's your health, your family, a friend who stood by you, or simply another opportunity to begin again. Nothing around you has changed, yet somehow, you feel different. Why? Because your attention has changed. Psychologists have found that practicing gratitude is associated with greater well-being, stronger relationships, and a more positive outlook for many people. It doesn't erase pain or hardship, but it can help balance our attention so we don't overlook the good that still exists. Here's the truth. Your brain naturally pays attention to problems. That helped our ancestors survive. But today, it often causes us to overlook blessings. The more you train your mind to notice what's good, the easier it becomes to recognize opportunities instead of only obstacles. Gratitude isn't pretending life is perfect. It's refusing to let difficulties become the only thing you see. Story. 2 brothers lost their jobs on the same day. One spent months complaining that life was unfair. The other allowed himself to grieve, but he also asked, "What can I learn from this?" He took a course, learned new skills, applied for jobs he never thought he could get. A year later, their circumstances had changed dramatically. The difference wasn't luck alone, it was perspective. Gratitude helped one of them keep moving forward. Life lesson. Every night before you sleep, ask yourself, what went right today? It may be a small question, but over time, it can quietly reshape the way you experience life. But gratitude isn't the only thing that spreads from one person to another. There's something else, something invisible, that fills every room you enter. Your emotions. Psychological truth number 14. Your emotions are more contagious than you think. Have you ever entered a room where everyone seemed tense? No one had spoken to you, yet you could feel the atmosphere. Now think about someone whose smile instantly lifts the mood, or a leader whose calm presence reassures everyone during a crisis. Human emotions spread more easily than we often realize. Researchers have found that people can influence one another's emotional states through facial expressions, tone of voice, and behavior. This doesn't mean you're responsible for everyone's emotions. You're not. But it does remind us that the attitude we consistently bring into our relationships matters. Optimism can inspire hope. Patience can calm conflict. Kindness can soften anger. Likewise, constant negativity can slowly drain the people around us. Think about the people who leave you feeling energized after every conversation. Then think about those who leave you emotionally exhausted. The difference often isn't intelligence, it's emotional influence. Story. During a difficult season, a hospital nurse became known for one simple habit. Before entering every patient's room, she paused. She smiled. She reminded herself, for the next few minutes, I may be the strongest source of hope this person sees today. Years later, former patients still remembered her, not because she performed miracles, but because she carried peace into rooms filled with fear. Never underestimate the impact of your emotional presence. Reflection. Ask yourself honestly, how do people usually feel after spending time with me? Inspired? Encouraged? Drained? Respected? That answer says more about influence than popularity ever will. Transition. We've reached the final psychological truth, and perhaps the most important one of all. Psychological truth number 15. The greatest person you'll ever learn to understand is yourself. Imagine spending your entire life trying to understand everyone else, while never truly understanding yourself. Many people know exactly what annoys them. Few know why. Many know what they want. Fewer understand what drives those desires. Self-awareness is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. It means recognizing your strengths without pretending you have no weaknesses. It means admitting when you're wrong without believing you're worthless. It means understanding your emotions instead of allowing them to control you. The more you understand yourself, the better you'll understand others, because compassion begins with honesty. Growth begins with humility, and wisdom begins with self-awareness. No amount of knowledge can replace the courage to examine your own heart. The people who change the world are often those who first allowed themselves to change. So before trying to fix everyone around you, take time to understand the person staring back at you in the mirror. That journey may become the most important one of your life. Conclusion. Today, we've explored 15 psychological truths. Some explained why people judge quickly. Others revealed why emotions shape decisions. We discovered the power of habits, the danger of assumptions, the strength of silence, the influence of kindness, and the life-changing value of self-awareness. But knowledge alone changes nothing. Only applied wisdom transforms lives. So this week, choose one of these truths. Practice it intentionally. Notice how your conversations change. Notice how your relationships deepen. Notice how your understanding of people begins to grow. Because the greatest advantage in life isn't simply knowing more, it's understanding people better, including yourself. If you enjoyed this journey into the human mind, subscribe to this channel. Here, we don't just explore psychology. We explore what it means to become wiser, one insight at a time. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, the mind is one of the greatest mysteries we'll ever explore, and every day gives us another opportunity to understand it just a little better. Watch next. Why Smart People Stay Quiet. Subscribe. Mentivo. Master the Mind, Master Life.